Imagine your child does decently well in math class, but as soon as they see a word problem, they're like, I hate word problems. I'm bad at word problems. I'm cooked. My teacher didn't teach us this. I'm just going to skip this question. If you've ever heard these sentiments, you're not alone. Today I'm going to walk you through the 7 biggest reasons of why students struggle with word problems. More importantly, I'll tell you a story of how figuring out the real reason behind the struggle changed everything for one of my grade 7 students. Does your child seem to do fine with the computations, but as soon as it becomes cloaked in a word problem, they freeze? A lot of students get discouraged by word problems because they're the source of so much frustration. But word problems really don't have to stay a struggle forever. Before we get started, if you're a parent looking for practical ways to help your child succeed in math, remember to subscribe. I share insights from my experience as a math tutor. Your child has probably heard these standard advice when it comes to dealing with word problems. Like, draw a diagram, read the problem carefully, write down all the known information. And honestly, that's good advice. I tell my students to do these things all the time. The problem is, these strategies might not work for the problem that your child is working on right now. As a math tutor, one of the things that I try to figure out first is not how to present the solution to the student. It's exploring the question, why is the student stuck in the first place? Because once you know that, you can stop giving the same explanation over and over again and wondering why they still don't get it. Here are the 7 most common reasons that I see. Reason number 1. It could be that they still don't understand the underlying math concept. I've met so many 12, 13, 14-year-olds who don't recognize that division is about sharing equally and that multiplication is about finding the total from equal groups. So when these same ideas appear in an algebra problem, they might just decide to take the 2 numbers and then just multiply them. Because sometimes that works. Reason number 2. Some kids don't retain enough of the math that they learned earlier. Here's an example of a Precalculus 11 problem that requires you to remember Pythagorean theorem from grade 8. If you don't recognize that Pythagorean theorem is a tool for this job, then you won't be able to solve the problem. This issue can be a challenging one to tackle because there are a lot of students who believe that they just need to study for a test and then afterwards they can forget the material. Reason number 3. Some kids have trouble with reading comprehension in word problems. Now, reading comprehension in word problems is not the same as reading comprehension in poetry or literature. Here, you're not just reading to understand a story, you really have to unpack what each phrase means. Even an adult might need to read this section a couple times over to really understand the meaning of the text. Reason number 4. Many students have not learned what productive persistence really looks like. Students who struggle often think, I don't know what to do here, so I'm just going to leave it blank. I want to take a wild guess. Well, that didn't work, so I don't know what to do. I guess I will just stop here and ask someone later. Successful problem solvers think, I don't know what to do yet. Let's try an idea. Well, that didn't work. What else can we try next? Learning to solve word problems involves being comfortable with trying, evaluating, and changing strategies until something makes sense. Reason number 5. Some kids understand what the word problem is asking, but the calculations or algebra become the difficult parts. If these skills aren't automatic yet, then students have to devote so much energy to computations that it makes it sound like the word problem is the challenge. Reason number 6. Many kids haven't built up a strong sense of measurements, so they can't evaluate whether or not an answer is reasonable. For example, if they don't have a good understanding of how much 1 liter is, they might calculate a volume that is unreasonable but not recognize it. Reason number 7. Some kids have trouble keeping track of the pieces in a multi-step problem. When a word problem has several steps, each calculation serves a purpose. Without clear organization, it's easy to forget a step or answer a different question than what was asked. Now, these reasons rarely happen in isolation. Sometimes a student struggles with more than one reason in the same question, and sometimes the reason changes from one question to the next. Let me show you what this looked like for one of my students. My student Kayla was in grade 7 and she had been tutoring with me for about 3 months. During our initial consultation, her mom said that her daughter was pretty good at computations, but wanted her to get ahead of the math that they were learning in school. These words are music to my ears, but not necessarily because I want to produce math geniuses. When a parent says that, what I hear is, we're not doing math tutoring to support school learning. You can do whatever you want. It basically means that I can build a boat instead of bailing water out of a sinking ship. I appreciate these parents. From the very first session, I could confirm Kayla was very good at computations, but whenever she saw a word problem, she froze. Here is one of our integer word problems. I'd ask her to read the question carefully and then determine whether to add or subtract numbers. Her answer was almost always, I don't know. And not knowing is fine, but I wanted to know why she was stuck. And this happened to be a student of very few words. She was always cooperative and willing to attempt every question, but if something was bothering her about a word problem, she didn't tell me what it was. So that was a real challenge. I thought maybe drawing the depth of the submarine would help. We tried that, but it wasn't really working, so I decided not to push this issue any further. We could always come back to integer word problems later. With the integer operation solid, at least, we moved on to algebra. I thought that it would be easy enough for her to translate these words into equations as long as she understood the vocabulary. Those went quite well, and I thought her confidence was building, so then I presented her these problems, and once again, she was stuck. Well, that told me something. I started wondering whether she understood what the 4 operations represented and when to use each one. It turned out she didn't. So that was great because we found the problem. Once I knew what was causing the difficulty, I was able to design activities that targeted the concept. Some time ago, she had drawn 4 cats on the whiteboard after she finished her homework, and I realized this girl has some artistic talents. She also really liked animals, so making a hard pivot from the original lesson plan, I had Kayla draw pictures on the board that represented the basic operations and had her create story problems about them. She was very creative. In one story, she even wrote about pre-ordering kittens to her house. By building the concepts first, the algebra problems then began to make sense. She was able to solve the one-step problems as well as the two-step problems. It's been a couple months now since Kayla last did algebra word problems. We're working on linear relations now, and while she has a much better understanding of how to break down word problems, it doesn't mean that she never gets stuck. Everything's always a work in progress. So these are the 7 most common reasons that students struggle with word problems. The next one is figuring out which one or which ones are affecting your child. You may have to be a little bit creative to figure out how to target the issue once you find out what it is. But I'd love to hear from you. Which of these reasons have you seen your child struggle with? Or is there another challenge that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content. I'm Clara Tong, your online math tutor for middle and high school students. I talk about all things math tutor related. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.